back off when you need to back off and
Mhm.
push it when it feels good, right?
Yeah.
Listen to your body, be in tune with your body.
Are you running a marathon? Oh, I could never run a marathon. Are you sure about that? A marathon? That's like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people. That used to be me. But not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Warwick. Warwick runs on Instagram, YouTube. Really happy to have you here. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. It's starting to feel almost a bit weird to have these intros, same ones every time. I definitely repeated it a lot. So this intro is going to be super quick. This episode is actually something that's been requested, or it's been requested for me to talk more about my work with Jonathan Green, who is my coach, but also a lot of professional runners coach. Maybe the most famous one right now, Rory Linkletter. He's coached a lot of great athletes, and he's also coaching me. I'm so proud to be one of his athletes. In today's episode, we are talking about, or like, obviously, John is guessing the podcast, and this is just the full conversation that we are having about my training, about kind of coming back from sickness or struggles. It could be injuries, whatever. But we're also kind of taking you with us into one of those weekly conversations that we have as coach and athlete. I think that's very useful for a lot of people. So, enjoy this episode with John. I'm going to just throw you into it. And also, quickly before, thank you so much for the feedback on the last episode. I really appreciate you all.
I just got back from LA last night, and I'm just like, oh, it was a crazy trip.
Oh, really? What were you doing there?
The 10 was last night, or
I,
Sunday. Was it Sunday?
yeah.
No, Saturday night. Yeah.
Did you have anyone running there?
Yeah, Aaron was racing it. So
Ah, okay,
uh
got it.
you'll see it there because track access, all access was there, but we had a
Mm-hmm.
session on with Rory and a bunch of people down in Camp Verde on Saturday morning. And so I drove from Saturday, like we woke up at I was up at like 4:30 in the morning, met
Mm-hmm.
them at like 5:30, drove down to Camp Verde, then drove from Camp Verde to LA, watched the race, and then drove from LA back to
Oh, wow. How long is
back
that
to
drive?
like it's like 6 to 7 hours depending,
Oh, wow.
something like that. Yeah, so
Oh,
it was long
busy
day. A lot
days.
of time in the
Yeah.
car, let me tell you.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Did you at least have anything good to listen to or to do in the car?
your podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
I actually didn't want that to be the answer. I was more. I
uh,
I realized when I asked it that it sounded like I was fishing for
yeah,
some.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm just kidding. No, what did I listen to? Actually, have you seen Zootopia?
No.
Okay, highly recommend.
Okay.
Great show, great movie. But Zootopia 2, Malcolm Gladwell did a deep dive on revisionist history of
Mm-hmm.
basically like there's a lot of I'll call it drama behind the scenes with it. And it is very fascinating. It's going to make you want to watch the second one really badly. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that is what I listened to a little bit. I talked to a bunch of people on the phone and stuff like that as you do.
Okay.
So
Nice.
yeah, and
Yeah,
just
that's smart.
zoned
I
out,
guess like
kept the car straight.
did, that's actually genius for you though. Like, especially since a lot of, I mean, when we usually call, you can easily do that from the car, so you can just kind of plan that accordingly, I guess.
Sometimes yes. For our calls, generally yes, right? Because it's so
Yeah.
like we're very in tune. But if
Mm-hmm.
it's with an athlete that I haven't spoken to in a little bit, I don't like doing it in the car just because I like to be able to reference everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously having a laptop out while driving, not the best call.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. But how
That's
you been?
smart.
How's your weekend?
It was good. I am very happy with yesterday's long run.
Yeah,
Or long
I
run.
saw
It
you
feels
pressed a
weird
little
to
bit
say.
towards the end too.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it feels weird to call it a long run when it's only 20K, but based on how the last weeks have been,
Yeah, exactly.
it's much better. Yeah. So I went out and I was like, I'll try to not push it, but like don't. I feel like after
Mm.
we started running again now, it's been almost more about trying to just hold back because it feels like my legs have been waiting to run.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so whenever I'm running, I feel like the pace comes super easy to me, especially like that 4:15 pace. That feels like I'm not pushing at all.
Yeah.
And so I went out and I was like, okay, I can maybe do like 4:20, 4:30, maybe even 4:15. And then all of a sudden I was doing like more 4:05 pace.
Mm.
And and then I was like, well, okay, I'll try to just keep this. And I kept that throughout the run. And I think that in the beginning it felt very comfortable. And then eventually as I progressed through the run, I felt like it got a bit harder and harder than at least probably what that run was supposed to be like.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I mean, I was able to have 3:51 on the last K, so I wasn't like beat or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious actually on your thoughts on that because I feel like I've been pretty good at staying true to everything that you prescribed and didn't really say anything about intensity on that run, but I don't think I was supposed to go as
Yeah.
hard as I did.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, the big question is how you feel today, right? That's kind of the
I
main.
felt felt really good. I just came back from a run. Legs are really good.
Sick.
Only thing that I can tell is that I've had a busy day, so I haven't been able to fuel as well as I wanted to. So I
That's
felt
fair.
more like nutrition wise during the run that I was like, oh, I'm getting hungry. I need to get home and have some more food. But other than that, my legs were just as good, if not better, than yesterday. So
Sick.
that's a good sign, I guess.
Nope, that is a very good sign. And you're right. So
Yeah.
that's, you know, with it kind of what I was talking to you about before, which is like, yeah, as long as we're feeling good, right? That's kind of like that barometer of fatigue and just listening to that. And, you know, especially later in a long run, if you're feeling good, then why not keep it rolling,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. No,
So
so
sick.
I was happy with that. I'm also happy. I think we ended up at 84K last
Yeah.
week,
Yeah, I saw that.
which is much better than I guess that was also more than what we talked about. But you also said like Monday when we
Yeah.
talked that it was okay as long as I felt good with everything. And so I would say like obviously most of the week was easy, and then we had that first harder session on Friday
Hmm.
with 8 by K.
Yeah.
No, 8 by 3 minutes
Yes,
we
that's
had
what it
on
was. Yeah. Yeah.
Friday. And again, like during the warm up, I felt pretty good. So it was like pace came pretty easy. So the whole run ended up being, I think, was like 4:10 pace
Mhm.
average or something,
Yeah.
which is totally fine. Um, but I think that, and this is something that I think might be interesting for us to chat a little bit about, especially because this was the first workout since like I don't know when we even had that last workout, maybe 4 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it was so easy for me to kind of run 5K at 3:45 pace. Now, on the 3 minutes, when I tried to push the 3:45, I think like especially on Saturday when I went out for a run, I could really tell that I was tired from that effort.
Mhm.
So, uh, I think that it's easy to sometimes be a little bit like, oh, I used to be like my threshold or my workouts always was like 3:35 to 3:40 pace. And then now
Mhm.
trying to push 3:45. And after 4 weeks of how things have been, of like things not going the way we wanted to and not being able to run properly, then obviously that threshold pace or that workout pace is not the same. But then your
Yeah.
mind kind of plays games on you and makes you think that you should still be there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, it's kind of, muscle memory in a weird way with it, and
Hmm.
so, yeah, it's kinda getting used to how your body feels and, yeah, kinda listening to that and kinda separating it from expectations versus reality sometimes, but I think like we spoke about, I think it'll come around really quickly, so
Yeah, and I hope so too. I feel like yesterday was a good like kind of gave me some good answers in that way, and also today with like feeling better. So
yeah.
it's but it's very interesting because if we look like 7 weeks ago, which is crazy that 7 weeks since we had a proper like good week, except for last week, but
Yeah.
still 7 weeks ago, I remember I texted you and I was like, what's going on? And I think you just wrote, you're just super fit now
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
uh,
I remember
you
it was
know,
around Christmas time, right? I think I was home
yeah, it was
in Massachusetts at the time.
one time was around Christmas, and then it was like then I just felt like my base was really good, and then we
Mhm.
had that week in February when I did those 8 by K where I was supposed to be like super tired, and I ended up doing like 320s and
Yeah.
315 actually,
Yeah.
and I still felt decent because I think that if I look back at beginning of February, then I felt like 330 pace was manageable for.
Yeah.
I remember starting to think like maybe I can do like 330 something
Mhm.
pace in
Yeah.
Boston, and then here we are a month later, or almost 2 months later. But
2 months. Yeah, it's
uh,
crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. But I still I feel like I don't know. Like we talked about this last time too, and it would be interesting to just chat about it a little bit on the podcast in
Yep.
terms of what your thoughts are now that it's been 7 weeks so long and the fitness was so good before that.
Mhm.
And now we have today, it's 3 weeks until Boston.
Yeah.
And just like, uh, based on like previous experiences, but also in this case, what are your thoughts on kind of being able to save the race somehow and get that fitness back
Yeah.
in time, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, do you wanna
Yeah.
dive right into it then?
Yeah, we could do that, and then we can go through last week of training, like when we a little bit later, maybe. But
Yeah, yeah.
just like especially now, considering that workout, I guess that we had on Friday, where was the first workout, and then yesterday was a bit of a harder one, and that kind of gives us some answers, I guess, onto where we are at right now.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know if you thought about it like after seeing those workouts or if that because that is like the first time since February that we're actually able to say that this is where we're at.
Yeah. No, exactly, and I think, with that, it's just building up is kind of our main focus here,
Hmm.
of, just kind of see like, the biggest question is feel like what we've been doing is it's been, we try to do something and we get knocked down. We try to do something, we get knocked down. And so with this is going to be helpful in the sense of uh, being smart and not and seeing your body build back and not get crushed because of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think this is the first time we're seeing that, which is good. So
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's really good, and I'm also very happy 'cause, like back to what you asked about how I'm feeling today, because that's kind of the most important one. Feel like
Mm.
if we look back at the last 7 weeks, there's been a lot of us trying a little bit and then there's a setback, and trying a
Yeah,
little bit and
exactly.
there's a setback. Now I feel like it's a little bit the opposite.
Hmm.
And so, uh, personally, I think that that's a good sign for Boston. And obviously, I wish that we still had 7 or 8 weeks so
Of
that
course,
we
yeah.
could build
That's the
up
goal,
even
right? Is
more.
you always want more
Yeah.
time. But that's
Yeah.
also, that's also what you want a little bit in the build versus being
Yeah.
like excited for it to be over.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. But I also, I mean, you and I talked about it quite a lot on the phone as well. That this doesn't necessarily mean that Boston isn't gonna be a good race. There is still
Yeah.
a chance that we can still run fast. It's obviously more of a risk involved. There's more
Mhm.
uncertainty, and um, but also maybe the biggest change is how we are approaching Boston, and I think that will be we talked about it, but if you maybe could explain a little bit about what your thoughts are now with the situation being what it is. We had last week back to almost a normal week, I guess, and then now 3 weeks until the race. What is it that we are doing, and what is the plan going forward for us compared to
Yes.
say a normal taper and normal build up?
Yeah, like we spoke about, we're gonna do a little bit less of a taper just because of the sickness you kind of went through, and so yeah, we just want to see consistency as kind of our main focus, as we kind of spoke about on the phone, and so yeah, with that is gradually building up. The big thing we've been missing is just kind of going left foot, right foot, and so over these next few weeks is basically building up and just kind of trying to get in some volume, but that's gonna cut into our taper period, obviously. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, that's just kind of our main focus with it, just to be smart. Uh, obviously, we'd like to add a little fitness. The biggest thing I want you to do is, or kind of what we're focusing on is, I want you going into the race kind of knowing what it'll hopefully look like, and not
Yeah.
be surprised, right?
Hmm.
That's kind of the main focus, I think, with it more than anything is I think right now you probably don't really know where you're at, right? And
Yeah.
I don't really know either, to be fully
Yeah.
disclosing it,
No,
right?
that's
Is
fair. Yeah.
I don't really know either, but that's kind of what we're on, like, a research mission over these next few weeks, basically just to dive in and be like, all right, this is what we expect from it, and to do some longer long runs and be like, all right, how do you feel afterwards and stuff like that. Like we spoke about before the pod started was, you
Yeah.
know, how, like, you pushed a little bit on this long run and you're feeling good today, right? That's a great sign,
Hmm.
right? And so
Yeah.
that those are kind of the little tidbits that help us understand better where you're at. And as we get into some more threshold work and stuff like that, just kind of understanding, okay, how's your body reacting to it? And yeah, that's more so it. And then in those workouts and stuff, it'll help us understand better of where you're actually at, and yeah, how we approach race day.
Yeah. No, and I think that this is like I'm not gonna build this as like a normal podcast either. I want us to just talk about these things in the way that I feel like uh,
Yeah.
up until now we kind of just talk the way we usually do on the phone, and I think it's
Hmm.
also a great way for I mean, there's so many people asking how it is to be coached by you, and I'm obviously, like I've told you, I love being coached by you, and I have no intention of stopping or like to stop working with you at all.
Yeah,
Like I am very excited about this, and
I'm glad.
um, I feel like what has been the most impressive thing for me at least is how quickly with your plan we built that fitness
Mm,
from Thanksgiving and up until Christmas. And that's kind
yeah.
of like that same time frame that we have between last week starting to train normally and
Mm,
Boston,
yeah.
which is kind of like my comfort thought, if if
Yeah.
I can call it that, because I knew that when I was running on that track in Boston on the New Balance track, and we had
Hmm.
that really good workout where that was one of the times when I reached out to you and I was like, now I feel like fitness is really good.
Yeah.
Um, but then I was also able to be consistent with the long runs, and I think
Hmm.
that that is the one thing that's been the most worrying to me, like looking back at the last 7 weeks, that
Mm,
luckily, even when we were not able to really get through all of the weeks, I tried to prioritize the long run because I was like, if
yeah.
I can just get through that long run, then at least we're not missing out on that one. And
Yeah.
so I had a few of those, although we had some down weeks.
Hmm.
But and I know that you said that on I think it was the last phone call too, that it's not really a question of being able to keep that pace that we're opening with or like starting at in Boston, because we'll
Yeah.
hopefully have a plan when we get to Boston. It's more that uncertainty of how long can I keep that pace? And some people would
Hmm.
say that well, that is the same for everyone, but I feel like
Yeah.
for us now, we'll know through the workouts that okay, 350 pace, 355, four flat pace, like whatever that ends up being, it's gonna feel okay. But
Yeah.
then it's the long runs that we kind of been lacking. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that we're able to kind of save that somehow within these next 3 weeks?
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, what would be the perfect thing to do, right? So that right? So if we look at it from the sense of, how do we go into Boston with zero questions? We know exactly how it's going to play out, right?
Hmm.
Uh, how we do it is we go run a marathon in practice, right? At
Yeah.
marathon pace, right? that's how we know, right? But we obviously cannot do that. And so with that is, doing some longer long runs and just kind of talking about how you're feeling, right? How
Yeah.
are you how are you feeling the day after? How are you feeling during it and stuff like that? If, let's say you got to 25K, 30K within a long run, and you're like, man, at 25K, I started feeling really fatigued, right? Like that would
Mhm.
be a sign, like, okay, hey, that might, and if that's just a kind of normal easy run pace or even slightly faster, that might mean, hey, listen, okay, that means we're probably gonna see that in Boston, right? But it's better to see that now rather than and know about it rather than go into Boston and be blind to it and then all of a sudden have that happen. You're like, uh-oh, right?
Yeah.
And it's not to say it can't happen, right? It doesn't mean that there's not going to be surprises on that day. But in the same aspect, it's just kind of looking at, what are those like small feelings you felt within workouts of like, okay, how are we feeling this with this and stuff like that. And just getting us to get back up to it so that, yeah, again, surprises are what we don't want to have happen at Boston. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, we're taking it week by week right now and just really, I mean, for the listeners, we've been jumping on a call pretty much every Monday or so, just trying
Yeah.
to be like, hey, listen, like, how are we doing? Just because it's been so, uh, you know, unsure with the sickness and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and that's how I have like work with athletes is, hey, listen, if we, if we need to do that, that's the best thing to do because it allows us to communicate and be on the same wavelength with things. And,
Mhm.
um, some of those calls, as you've known, has been like 5 minutes and it's, I feel bad. And it's like, okay, like, let's probably not run this week,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of, as we look into it, um, for these next couple weeks is it's still doing that of like, all right, yeah, we're just trying to get in what we can. This week you have a day of strides and then we have some Ks, which
Mhm.
is very similar, right, to what we did last week with fartlek of 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, right? Again, I like fartleks as kind of tester workouts, and now we're kind of trying to prescribe paces to it essentially,
Yeah.
and kind of see, what zones are where are the zones at essentially, and kind
Yeah.
of give us a basic understanding of like, all right, what's your threshold?
Mhm.
So that we can use that to help extrapolate as well towards the marathon pace. And so, yeah, and just gradually building up long run, right? So you were 20K last week for long run, and we have 20 to 26 this week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just which is in theory a big jump in the long run, but I think with how quickly we've built up in the past, and what I've seen is it shouldn't be an issue given what you've been able to accomplish in the past
Yeah.
and how well you felt this time and how you ran faster with that long run. So,
Yeah. And I guess like you said, 20 yesterday, maybe like I'm usually, I don't know if you noticed, but whenever you write 20 to 26, it will be 26 for me. Whenever you say 6 to 8, it will always be 8 for me.
as it is a
Unless
lot
I'm
of my athletes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, but I'm also not afraid of like stopping or quitting if I don't feel good, and that's been an agreement that we've had as well. That as soon as I
Yes.
start feeling something, then I'm like, you've even told me, like last week, you told me to keep my runs close to home so that
Mhm.
if I feel anything, then I stop, which is also nice. And I guess like I saw that, was it Rory, or was it yesterday that Rory posted something about like last real long run or something before starting to run a bit shorter or something
Mhm.
like that. So I think that a lot of people, now that we are 3 weeks out, they might have had like that last super long run, and maybe they will have a long run next week or whatever. But
Yep.
for us, it's gonna be a little bit different because we're planning on having another two long runs.
Yep.
And so, what are your thoughts on that? Because that means that we're heading into that week where it's gonna be maybe a week and a half or something until the race when we have the last run, or maybe even a week until the race when we're having that last long run. How do we schedule that that last run that we're having? Because 26 next weekend,
Mhm.
or yeah, 20 to 26, and maybe 30 for the last one. I don't know. That's kind of
Yeah.
what we briefly talked about. But when will we do that, and how do we, or what do you think about that so close to the race kind of?
Yeah. with long runs, especially with Boston, I don't know how scientifically it's based, right? But because Boston's on a Monday and it's the only major on a Monday, it feels like we have way more time,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Um, and yeah, because of that, I feel like, sometimes in college, I was always taught like, hey, listen, you do your last long run, before a race or something like that on the Saturday before. And,
Mhm.
it almost feels like we have even more time because if we do it on Saturday, that's 2 extra days now, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
before it and so we can at the end of the day, it's recovery as well of, like, how well you recovering from this long run to the race, and so, yeah, I think we're gonna recover just fine between it,
Mm.
and so, especially for you, where it's almost like the slope of the line is just gradually going up versus for a lot of people it'll come down and then go back up for if we
Mhm.
consider like the marathon in the long run.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's something that I'm yeah, just kind of we'll see how it feels and stuff like that. Again, I'm not worried
Mhm.
about recovery on that front. So
No.
I think to be honest with you, it'll hopefully just boost confidence as we go into it. We're not going
Mhm.
to do a long run workout obviously that day or anything like
No.
that. It'll just be easy time on feet and truly easy.
Yeah.
And so yeah, yeah, it'll be again, it's a data gathering mission is kind of what we're
Yeah.
after with it of like, all right, yeah,
Yeah.
hey, listen, and obviously there's a difference between 30K and 42 and
Mhm.
there's a gap there, but hopefully it'll give us the information we need so that if we set off, then at whatever pace we set off at, it'll help us, work through it and feel good with it.
Yeah. And you know, we started working together in October, and
Mhm.
then we were kind of we didn't get to actually train together until
Yeah,
Thanksgiving because of another sickness that I was
yeah,
dealing with. But uh, we pretty quickly started implementing these long runs, and we had proper long runs from
yeah.
December 1st or something where it was like 26, 27K, and then building up to around 30
Mhm.
plus. And we kept that going until February 7th or something like that,
Yep, yeah.
which was pretty good. And I guess like this is something that a lot of people will also be curious about, and myself included.
Mhm.
Um, how much do I still benefit from that, you think, now that we are just ramping it back up after these weeks of not being able to execute those long runs?
Yeah, I mean, from a pure long runs standpoint, it still is beneficial in my opinion. Again, your body is it still went left foot, right foot for that long period of time. And so that's something that is, yes, definitely still present, for sure. The question is the aerobic side of things, right? You went through sickness, and right that is going to impact your aerobic fitness, especially
Yeah.
there is a period of detraining in there for sure. And so yeah, it's the big thing is just yeah, seeing how right sore and stuff like that. That's usually my uh like from a qualitative standpoint is looking at it of like, okay, yeah, how sore are you coming off of this? Right.
Hmm.
And I think, I don't know when you're cutting the podcast, but my first thing I asked you was, how do you feel today? Right.
Yeah.
On your run after or after the long run, and you're
Yeah.
like, I felt good. You're like, I felt
Hmm.
fine. I didn't feel any issues. You ran faster than we talked about. You ran a little longer than we talked about, which again, said it was fine as long as you're willing to cut it if you're not
Yeah.
feeling fine. And so, yeah, I think that's something that shows like, oh yeah, no, listen, we're like the body clearly still remembers those longer long runs that we did,
Yeah.
no matter, if they were a number of weeks ago. And so, yeah, I think that bodes well for us, right? That was a
Yeah.
clear like, okay, that's a green light situation. We're
Hmm.
looking good that woke up and felt good. And don't get me wrong, you could feel worse tomorrow, right? If it was
Yeah.
delayed, but I don't think you will necessarily.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that's a great sign. And so it shows like, oh yeah, your body is remembering versus, if you go into the weight room and you haven't I don't know, done squats in a year and you go do squats close to what you were before, you're going to walk away and be like, wow, I'm so sore, right?
Yeah.
Versus this is you didn't feel that way, which is a great sign.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's super interesting what you're saying there, because I also I think that and maybe a lot of athletes will do that, but like you tend to forget that you've been sick. So yesterday when
Yeah.
I was running, when I went out, I was like, wow, this is pretty good. And then as I got a little bit more tired throughout the run, I was like, oh, I shouldn't be
Mm.
tired now, because like we were at this great fitness just a few months
Yeah.
ago, right? But then like now that we're talking about it, realizing that hey, a week ago I wouldn't be able to even run 20K,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden now I'm running 20K at like what was my race pace in Boston uh last year,
Mhm.
and I was running most of that in zone 2, right? So it's kind of um I don't know, it's weird to see how the brain works like that, but also
Yep.
like what does that, I guess you kind of answered that already, but what does that tell us that I'm able to do that already yesterday? And how much improvement in fitness can we kind of expect? Say if I'm not going to do that, but like if I was to do the exact same thing next week,
Mhm.
or this week for a long run, what do you think we could expect if things are just now trending normally?
Yeah, that's so the big question, right, is I see this as a pendulum swinging back and forth, and I think I've explained this to you. I've explained it to a bunch of athletes that I coach. Is you know when you're getting back into running, and we're past the phase of like, hey, can we run tomorrow, or whether it's injury or it's like pure fatigue, looking at it of like, hey, we're
Hmm.
coming back from sickness. The next step is where are we at, right? And it's a pendulum that swings back and forth before it finds the middle ground, which is, you know, I'm super fit. This is fitter than I've ever thought I like this. Like, I'm not affected at all by the sickness, to, oh my goodness, this is terrible, right? Like, I
Yeah.
am unfit completely. And it basically swings back and forth until you find the middle ground, which is where your fitness actually is, right?
Hmm.
And so that's, and again, that's kind of what we're after is learning where you're at with things. And so again, that like little bit of fatigue, or recognizing is like, hey, listen, oh, wow, this feels long, right? There's also a psychological part of it, right? If you haven't run that long in a while, and it's getting, that's also part of it. Is so when we're in the middle of the marathon and we're 30K in, or 15K in, you're not like, or I should say 25K in, and you're not like, wow, I've been running for so long, right? That's what we don't want to see, is
Hmm.
you be like, oh, no, no, I'm like, I did this a couple weeks ago, I'm fine, right? And that's kind of
Yeah.
something that can be confidence boosting for athletes. I don't think, in like long runs and stuff like that for athletes, that you need to do a marathon to do it, right? If you need to prove to yourself that you do so that it's less scary, then that's its own thing, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, for the most part, just kind of gradually building up so that it's okay. Listen, we've put the strength into the legs. You've handled this in the middle of training loads that are higher than hopefully what would be on marathon week. And so, yeah, you're starting to feel good. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I forget if that answers your question or not. So,
No, but I think that it partly does, but also like I guess I'll return to that question. I'm gonna ask you one more question that is
yeah,
more like, I guess, listener based, and then I'm just recording our whole conversation here, and then I'm gonna turn it more into like just a normal like asking you for in the way that we would normally on a call, and
yeah,
then yeah, we'll probably try to use that too. But the one thing that uh, I think that if I just saw the training plan that
mhm,
we've been kind of or from in the beginning, I
yeah,
would say that what this seems like not a lot, not very challenging. Especially some of the workouts that we've had, it's been trending more to like 5 to 8 by K rather than 10 by K. And I know that we were just about to kind of ramp things up a little bit when things
yeah, yeah.
started spiraling, but I think that if I didn't see the results that I had or the progress that I had, I would have been a bit skeptical to like that load and how
Mm,
I feel like we had overall quite the load. Like
Yep.
we were building the mileage, but not a lot of hard workouts. Like I didn't feel like I was pushing myself, and there were times where I was like, "Is this really enough?" And then I saw
Yep.
that I had so much progress, and then you just stop questioning that at all, right?
Yeah.
And so, especially compared to a lot of others' training plans, I think that it might seem much more doable, if that makes sense. And will you
Yeah.
say something about that and in your philosophy of that? Because that is
Yeah.
kind of unique, I think.
Yeah. So there's a very long answer coming your way on this front.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because there's a lot of like right so I'm trying to think where I'm gonna pick at it first. So what I will say is, right, when we first jumped on our first podcast, which was basically our first call,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, is the you know I start out as just general coach John, and the more feedback you give me, the better I become at coaching you, right? And
Mhm.
so that's something where that like the feedback is never something I want to tamp down, in all honesty, of hey, listen, I feel like we're not doing enough, right? Because we want to do
Mhm.
work, right? But there's also a balancing act of it, right? And so don't get me wrong, there's a ton of times where I've been like, hey, listen, we're 2 weeks out from hitting that stuff that you want. I'm just gradually building into it. I'm learning about you as an athlete. This is more of a, yeah, again, information gathering part from me, right? Um, but yeah, that's something where I always want an athlete to say, "Hey, listen, I feel like this is going wrong." Right? I've had athletes tell me, "Hey, listen, I feel like your paces are too slow, or they're way too fast." Right? And yeah, that helps me understand better of where an athlete is because I'm not there with you. Right? That's
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
kind of the biggest challenge I need to overcome, and the I do best with athletes who vocalize that to me, right? Because
Yeah.
if not, I see the splits. I'm like, okay, we're good. Like,
Yeah, because
uh,
I remember that actually that was pretty early in December where you prescribed me a threshold workout where it was like 325 or something, and I
mm,
remember telling you that, hey, just so you know, like my threshold before I was sick was 340 or something like that. So I think
yeah,
325 is a bit ambitious. And then you were like, oh yeah, then we will just adjust that. So that
exactly.
was like very easy when we were communicating.
Yeah, exactly. And that's right. I think, you know, I think not certain athletes, I think athletes who have worked with a coach before or who haven't worked for a coach before think or work with a coach before. We think we know everything. We don't, right? And I think that's kind of the biggest thing is we are, each person is so unique, right? And if you just get a general coaching plan, right, very generalized, right? That's not what I do. I don't, everything has changed, kind of not constantly but pretty constant, especially if there's sickness or something's up, and
Yeah.
so yeah, with that can be, that feedback is really helpful for me of knowing you yourself, right? And
Hmm.
getting paces dialed in, and so yeah, I think that can be really something that is necessary. And yeah, as we figure things out, and for you, right, it worked out where it was like, hey, listen, we're taking it a little slower, and you're like, wow, look at this fitness that is built almost immediately, right?
Yeah.
Which is awesome, right? Which is
Hmm.
so stoked with that, right? But
Yeah.
there's also times where an athlete, sorry, the dog's gonna go
Yeah.
nuts for
You're
a second.
good.
I don't know if you saw, but out of the corner of my eye, I was like watching the mailman come up to the door, and I was like, "Ah, Indy, the dog is gonna go nuts." And then I was
I
like,
didn't even know that you had a dog.
"Oh, Indy, come here. I'll show her
Yeah.
off." Indy,
Yeah.
touch. So Indy is not my dog. He's my girlfriend's dog. But
Uh,
we are
oh,
watching. Yeah,
look at that. She's
yeah,
cute.
yeah, she's cute. She does well.
Oh,
Yeah.
so cute.
She's just been kind of roaming around a little bit over the last yeah, so um
That's
but
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So she's but she barks at everything that comes to the door, anyone, I should say.
Yeah.
And I saw the mailman just standing there, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to sign." I don't know what it is. It's my next door neighbor, not next door, my tenant's package.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was
Well, my dog does the same thing. Whenever someone's approaching the door, he'll go crazy. He barks when he's happy, so it's not that he's aggressive or anything. But
yeah,
whenever someone's approaching the door, he's like, "Oh, visitors, nice."
yeah, exciting. Yeah, who's here? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um. All right. So going back, I think what was I talking? I was talking about you.
Yeah, we're talking about that fitness that we kind of built by
Yeah.
also
Oh,
slowing, or not necessarily slowing things down, but like making sure we found that intensity, which I think
yeah.
is obviously for us working together is important to find that pace that we are building at and not kind of tearing it down too much.
Yeah.
Um, but then also like I guess kind of back to the question too is like that is one part of it like in terms of the intensity, and the other thing is about the the the, the overall like not load but like how many so a lot of our workouts will be like I think the maximum amount of work that we've done in one session has been like 10K,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then a good long warm up or a long cool down, or maybe in the middle of a longer run. But
Yeah.
most of it has been like a maximum of 10K, and a lot of it has also been less, like maybe 6 to 9K.
Yep.
And that's maybe something that surprised me in the beginning, that I've also seen, like I said, that built quite the fitness. And so from the outside, people would be like, well, is it enough when you're training for a marathon to do just like 6 to 9 or 10
Yeah.
by K? And I know that like athletes like Rory, they will do much more than that. But
Mhm.
what are your thoughts on that? Is that because we've been trying to get to know each other, or is that also part of your philosophy that maybe we don't need more than that to kind of build that fitness?
Yeah. So if we look at threshold, right? So let's speak specifically about
Yeah.
a threshold workout. Is so threshold in theory is the pace that we can run for an hour straight, right? And
Hmm.
so to do so as soon as the workout becomes roughly an hour, we like the intensity is gonna go up, right? So let's say we generally take 60 seconds rest if we're doing Ks or miles or whatever, right? And so, we're spending most of that hour running. And so it's kind of understandable that as we're gonna start hitting that like upper end of difficulty. And so or not upper end of difficulty. It's just upper end of like threshold pace where it's just like it's going to start getting exponentially harder pretty quickly. And so that's kind of my thoughts with it of why, we don't spend, we don't do 10 miles worth of work at threshold zone in one instance, right? We'd break it up
No.
into double T, right? That's kind of the
Yeah.
idea with it, right? So
Yeah.
Rory will do, 8 miles is I think the highest he's ever done of threshold in the morning. Which is again it's that hour range is kind of what we're after a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's different instances where it changes and we mix and match a little bit, but versus, marathon pace is a lot slower. Obviously, it's a pace we're running for over 2 hours,
Hmm.
or over three or over four or five, depending, or even more so, obviously, depending on the athlete, right? And so with that is it's understanding that and saying, okay, let's back off the paces. And because we're backing off the paces, we can go longer, right?
Yeah.
Um, and but then we also have to look at kind of the match that we've lit with that and the mental tax that we're going to have to pay of, doing a 10-mile workout solo by yourself is difficult. It's not fun, right? I was talking
No.
to an athlete the other day about this. I was talking to one of my amateurs. I was speaking to about it, as well as a pro who had a similar workout, and it was both like, yeah, it stinks to just go out and do this solo, right? This is
Yeah.
not fun, right? And it is a grind, but that's something we can practice mentally of like how to approach it and stuff like that, and using that and saying, hey, listen, when there's places where we're starting to get into a little bit of negative headspace, it's like that's okay, right? But how do we
Mhm.
change that page and be either neutral or positive with things, right? And so yeah, and talking through it. And so again, that's something that uh we spoke about this is like a pro is doing versus what an amateur, there's not a huge difference there. It's what, and, I've said to, multiple times is I don't care if my athletes post stuff on Strava because it's not like we're doing secret stuff, right?
No.
It's not like our workouts are, this like, yeah, hidden thing that like, are going to help like that only we know what to do and it's going to help us, right? But what it is it's changing things at the last minute to making sure we're being smart about things and
Hmm.
helping ourselves be better, right? And get the most out of
Yeah.
ourselves on that day, right? It's the same thing, right? With, you giving me feedback on, hey, listen, these Ks are a bit fast. That's helpful too, right? Or letting me know, right? Why I have plans that have phone calls. And what's really helpful to me is, being able to jump on a call. And even if it's 5 minutes long, it's discussing because, you probably set it off like off the cuff just because, right? You're just like going through it. But what was one of the more valuable information I keep a piece of information I keep bringing up is how you felt today, right? And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I felt good. Didn't notice anything,
Hmm.
right? That is more valuable than how the long run felt to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, if the long run felt terrible, that's
Yeah.
more helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, it's those things that can be really helpful, and why, I like talking on the phone with people and stuff like that. Um, you know, I have to be careful of my own time, obviously, with how much time,
Yeah.
just because, calls take more time at the end of the day,
Yeah.
but it does help us get, or helps me get little tidbits of information. And also, if an athlete, I'm trying to think, I'm sure there's been times where we've brought it up is, you might say something that seems like a little bit of a unsureness or
Hmm.
worry and stuff like that. And you bring it up just kind of nonchalantly, but
Hmm.
we dive into it and that becomes a 10-minute part of our conversation of talking through it and being like, hey, listen, this is, that's okay. You feel that way. This is why I'm doing it this way, or this is my thoughts with it.
Yeah.
And you get to give live feedback of like, oh, that makes sense, right? Kind of situation.
Yeah, and I think a great example of that is like over Christmas, where it actually was. It was. I was stoked about how things were going, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, I almost feel like, or I don't understand how I'm so fit. And you said this is good and it's bad because
Yep.
I'm starting to get too fit for what my knees and legs can actually handle because my heart
Yeah.
rate was low and the pace ended up
Yeah.
being a bit higher on everything that I did or faster. And then we kind of had to hold back a little bit and focus
Mhm.
on that and kind of make sure that the easy runs were even easier and make sure that
Yeah.
we were in control. And I think that that is also what at least I appreciate about you as a coach, that instead of being like, yeah, now we're in such a good place, so let's just keep pushing and pushing, then you're
Mm.
kind of pulling the brakes a little bit. And then we are being more careful about that. And then we had a little bit of a niggle that was a struggle for or a problem for maybe 5 days. And then we
Yep.
were able to bounce back from that.
Exactly.
And it wasn't really a problem. So
Yep.
I think that says a lot about you as well.
No, no, no. Yeah, and it's again, I tell this to, or for as long as I remember, but I say it at some point. Working with a new athlete is uh, tell like any information is helpful, right? I have people,
Mhm.
I know I said this is a line I say on every call is like introductory call is I have people who write nothing in the comment section. I have people who write full novellas, right?
Yeah.
And I also, having been an athlete, right? I know how annoying it is to keep up a log sometimes
Hmm.
where, you have a code. What's nice now is it's all GPS. You just upload it, it goes through and it's great, right?
Yeah.
But previously, like that wasn't a thing, right? With logs that I've used where you have to manually enter everything. And that takes time, right? But that is
Mhm.
such a valuable thing for a coach just to know. And again, I've had people who talk about just like, oh, we saw, deer on our run and stuff like that. It has no like real like impact on their training. Other than, I hear that they're doing well, right?
Yeah.
Which is totally fine, right? But there might be a tidbit of like, oh, yeah, I had 2 steps that I felt my Achilles. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
like I just kind of make a mental note of things like that. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's any information is always good, and it's I've always had athletes who said like, "Oh, I don't want to be a bother," but it's like, it's not a bother. Please, like,
No.
write if you have the time and it's you think it's worth noting, please write about it, right?
Hmm.
It's one of those things. I'm always gonna read it. I tell you this as well, as I don't respond to comments
Yeah.
ever in on the runs on Final Search, just because it becomes chaotic. But
Hmm.
of like notifications and stuff. But yeah, it's always something that I read and just kind of look through. And it helps us judge the next week. It helps us judge the training going forward, right? And it helps me kind of, again, the athlete who's talking about who saw a deer on their run, right? And was paying attention. That tells me that they were looking around and having a good time and enjoying their run, and
Yeah.
they weren't just suffering, right? If they were out there
Hmm.
suffering and like just staring at the ground trying to go next foot forward, then they probably wouldn't have seen the deer, right?
Yeah.
Which is an over exaggeration kind of thing, but
Yeah.
still like
Yeah. Yeah.
applicable.
Yeah. No, I think that totally makes sense, and I think that just I'm gonna ask this just because we are on the podcast, and I asked
Yeah,
that
yeah,
question and that is that I asked you now about like the amount of work that we had in each session up until that first week of February, and then I said
yeah.
that I didn't feel like it was a lot. It felt like almost like,
Mm,
oh, is this enough? But I was still have gaining fitness, so I obviously trusted, and like that
yeah,
is I still trust that 100%. But I also know that the week when I started struggling, that's also when we started upping things a little bit. I think I had
yeah,
uh was it 4 by 2 miles or something like that.
yep,
And like one of my workouts, that was the first one that I actually had to just quit and stop
yeah.
mid workout. So just quickly, you don't have to take us through like week by week or day by day or anything like that. But
Mhm.
what would our build have looked like if we were able to continue? Because I know that that's when we were supposed to start adding work and also like the long runs, and we never got to really do that.
Yeah. So I pulled up the note from that day, and this is why notes are so helpful, right?
Hmm.
Um, do you mind? I'm assuming you don't mind if I read it out.
Yeah, yeah, go for
Yeah,
it.
okay.
I'm
So
open
it
open book
says,
here.
yeah, first work in a long time that I haven't felt great. Might be because I had to do it so early in the AM. Plan on doing four, but was pretty tired after three. And so yeah, basically that would have been an immediate cue into like, okay, we might be doing a bit too much right now, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so that's something that's really helpful. You ended up long running on that Monday instead of what was planned for Sunday.
Yeah.
There are no notes from that, but yeah, the long
No,
run
so
looked
that's
good.
yeah, so I actually those yeah, so that one I remember now. That was before I started feeling bad, but like now looking back, this is interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
then there were some signs, although I felt really good a week and a half later, because I guess like if you then go to the Wednesday of that same week,
The K's.
that's when I had the 8 by K where I
Yeah,
felt
you crushed it.
super good. That
Yes.
was like the best workout that we've ever had, I think.
Yeah, you said, quote, "Now we are in it or at it. This is so much fun."
Yeah,
Explanation
yeah.
points thrown in there,
I I was
and
so
yeah,
stoked, and then
yeah,
came Saturday, and I had that long run on ice, where I had some work in there, and 30K, I think, 416
yeah.
average pace, and it was like easy for everything except for the first 8 by K or something, whatever I did.
Yeah,
I
because you
don't
got
know what I
sick
had.
basically there that following that 5 to 8 by K, right?
Yeah, that's when I started getting really feeling really tired, and I felt like my body was just pulling the brakes on everything I would do.
Yep.
Because all of a sudden I started struggling doing 4 flat pace, and I came out then I came from that week of doing 320s feeling good. And after calibrating the treadmill, turns out we were actually doing 315 pace for those
Yeah.
8 by K, right? So
Yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah, and basically it seems like yeah, because if my memory serves me, was basically like, oh yep, you started feeling a little fatigued, and then we went to full blown sickness.
Yeah.
That was basically that early fatigue, and so again, I think what we were doing was, especially as like newer athlete working with a not new coach, but you know what I mean, like starting to work
Mhm.
together for the first time. It's figuring out where you're at and stuff like that. And things were clicking really well. And then we got hit by that sickness. And at
Yeah.
first it was, we felt that or we saw that fatigue come on. And with that fatigue coming on, it was like, uh-oh, what's the cause of this, right? That's the biggest
Yeah.
question, is what is causing this, right? And I think we look at what was causing it, and it was sickness,
Mhm.
um, but in the
And
same aspect,
then also figuring out that I had some deficiencies and, like, there was all of
yep,
that, and then came, like, a proper cold or flu, and then dealing with that for a week and a half or 2 weeks in
yeah,
addition to that, so it's like, yeah. Um, no, but, like, what would if we look at February 7th when I had that long run
yep,
and we started I remember you told me that the following week would have been the first long run with some work in it.
yes,
And I think we did have some of it where I had some progression in it somehow.
yep. So
And we did, yeah,
it was a 15 to 17K progression, just a gradual cut down was the goal of it.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, we didn't do that because um but on Friday you said, "Hey, listen, feeling better uh after a couple days off, felt good today, no strides because of the cold and ice outside."
yeah,
And so we must have spoken and been like, "Hey, listen, let's not do this cut down."
yeah.
Because I was probably worried and being like, we could set ourselves off the edge basically of,
Hmm.
uh-oh, we've overdone it now and we're back into that fatigue hole without
Yeah.
realizing it. And so we definitely pulled it, and we only went 12K that day. And
Yeah.
so
I
yeah,
think I tried to push through that workout, but I just didn't feel it. And so I had to end it a bit early, didn't I?
yeah, it must have been a like, "Hey, listen to the body, don't overcook it" kind of
Yeah,
situation.
because I'm pretty
Probably
sure
same thing
I
I told you
caught
the other
when,
day
yeah, because I'm pretty
of like
sure
stay home
when,
to close to home or something. But you did it on a
yeah,
treadmill. But yeah.
yeah, I did it on the treadmill, and I'm pretty sure when we talk, I told you that one of the biggest or main reasons for me to quit or stop was that just a week prior to that, I did 315, feeling like fresher than
Yep.
I did at 410 pace, and so I
Yep.
was like, something is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because then after that, we had 3 days of rest
yeah, yeah.
because you felt off, you felt fatiguey again,
Hmm.
and then, yeah, we went back to running, and we were like, "You must have felt good on the next 2 days because you went 8K, 10K, or 40 minutes and then 50 minutes," and
Yeah,
then yeah, felt like we tried to do a session just to try to, like, introduce it, and you were just like, "I don't feel great,"
yeah, yeah.
And
Because
that's
none of
yeah.
the workouts really felt good, and then I think I was able to do a decent long run, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly,
you
like
said you
20,
felt good with
20.
it, yeah,
Yeah, so I think I had like a 27K long workout that Saturday or
yeah,
Sunday. Could that be right? Is that right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And now,
and
and
right,
then,
sorry, go for
yeah.
it.
No, that was all I was just thinking. So,
Yeah, but this is right, this is, you know, eh, these are the conversation, or like this is the information that can be helpful of, hey, listen, this is how, this type of feedback of, if somebody's feeling fatigued or sick or something like that, this is the
mhm.
feedback to give, right? When training's going well, that's not when I earn my pay,
No,
it's
no.
earning pay on days like this, right? Where, you know, we're trying to be as smart as we could with it, but also realizing that we wanted to make sure we're pushing, and it's understanding, like, okay, trusting, I rely on the athlete a lot to tell me how they're feeling and stuff, and what
Mhm.
they like. A big question that I will ask a lot of the time is, hey, listen, how did you like, what do you think is the right idea here? Right?
Yeah,
Because usually your
yeah.
intuition is going to be correct. And don't get me wrong, there's times where an athlete's like, I want to do this. And I'm like, whoa,
Mhm.
let's back, like, let's,
Yeah.
go under by a decent amount. But, yeah, that's generally, that back and forth of like, hey, let's just figure out what's going to be the right call is, which basically was a lot of this build,
Yeah.
unfortunately, right? Which was, it wasn't very smooth. It was sickness that kind of kept coming
Mhm.
back, and you're just not feeling 100%. And as soon as you got sick, we basically were like, all right, we're going to be really cautious in this and
Yeah,
how we
yeah.
build up, and just try to listen to the body, because it's not worth forcing through it. Like, our goal is just to again, consistency and fun is our name of the game. And so, yeah.
But interestingly enough, like now that we're going through this, I'd say that we only missed out on like 3 to 4 long runs, which is like obviously in a
Yep.
marathon build that is pretty essential. But we still did because I pushed through on. I don't know if that was the right call, because maybe if I didn't push through, we would have been able to do
Mhm.
more in some of those weeks. But I think that 4 weeks ago, I also had that long run where it was like 25K with
Mm.
3 by 5K in there.
Yep.
And that was like at a time where I think you told me to just do whatever I felt like, almost, or something. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't. I don't think you gave me the go to do 3 by 5K in that long run, but I think that it was also like uh I don't really remember our communication around that workout, but it was a good one where I was like, okay, that felt really good. The fitness is there, and I thought I was back. And then we got to, I guess, back to your question initially in this call. How did you feel the day after?
Yeah.
And then I didn't feel so good the days after, and it just that ended up being almost a week off, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think it was, yeah, we were just kind of unsure of where you're at with it, kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah,
Was kind of the big thing. So
yeah.
yeah, it was right. This was a very, like we talked about, not a smooth build by any means. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was a lot of, you know, hey, if you feel up for it, do this, right?
Yeah.
And then, and that's the thing is, right, as we go back to it, right? As we do another build in the future, the big question will be, remembering and referencing this of like, and that's why the
Mhm,
notes are so helpful sometimes, because
mhm,
I remember, okay, yep, I read this note, and then we modified the schedule to do this instead. And kind of there's always blank spots, of course, because
mhm.
you know I take notes during calls, but not super super detailed notes, only things that are kind of helpful to remember. But yeah, and that can be helpful in just remembering, like, all right, yeah, this is where we're at with things, and kind of going from
Yeah.
there.
Okay, we're gonna start to wrap this up, and I'm gonna kind of switch all the way. Still have the recording. I'm just gonna ask you some questions that are more, I guess, more relevant for me, but it could be interesting for the listeners as well. And that has to do with if we look at yesterday's run, that I was like pushing it a little bit. I would say that that wasn't necessarily a smart move to do, but although like you said, I'm feeling okay today, so hopefully it hasn't mm, yeah, done too much damage.
Yeah.
um but now that we are 3 weeks out, what is it that you would like to kind of, what is very important for me to remember with everything? Because I feel like it's more important for us to do everything right these next 3 weeks. Not necessarily like the plan is what it's gonna be, and I trust
Yeah.
you 100%. But from my side, in terms of intensity, in terms of like the pace for long runs, for workouts, what should I, is there anything I should focus more on now than if, say, the build was 100% perfect?
So yeah, eh, right now our focus is consistency, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like for I'm sure you can put the Strava link in the description of yesterday's run,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But it was, we had 16 to 18K long run, which I said on the call, you can add on if you're feeling good, and if you're not feeling good, cut it short. Try to stay close to your origin point, like your starting point.
Hmm.
And you worked down to a 6:29 mile by the end, right?
Hmm.
So got after it a little bit, for
Yeah.
sure. And
I think
so
actually, I think that like if I look at the last K, that was also closer to a six flat pace. But obviously you don't get
you
the
yeah
case, and
no,
yeah,
oh no,
so
I do. So it was a 3:51
yeah,
20th K.
yeah,
So
yeah,
6:11 pace for those who use those units. And so
yeah,
yeah, 3:51 or 6:11. And so yeah, I think right with that is you dug into it a bit, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you're feeling good, right? we didn't talk about pace in all honesty,
Mhm.
but with that, it was like, yeah, you listen to your body with it. And again, it's that wouldn't have been something I told you to do, right? Because I want to
Yeah.
be cautious with it, but you kind of took some liberties with it and went for it. And we have more information now because of it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that's both good and bad, right? It's like,
Mhm.
we took a little risk, but you saw the risk is worth it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, consistency is the name of the game, right? And so, right now what we're trying to do here is just keep that consistency, and that's what that
Mhm.
long run was a little bit of a risk of, right? Is
Yeah.
jeopardizing that possible consistency. And so for you leading into this is consistency and doing a little bit of harder work, trying to find where the fitness is, right?
Mhm.
Aerobically, find where the strength is as well, right? So for this coming week's long run is 20 to 26K, and we're just going to kind of play by ear. You have the same instructions, right? I think we should take it easier, right?
Yeah.
But also, if you're feeling good, and you want to go 2K longer, that's fine with me, right? Because it's,
Mhm.
as long, again, if you're having an A day, then great, like let's take advantage of
Yeah.
it. But also, if you're like, I'm really fatigued, and you go less than 20K, which is what you did this yesterday, then
Mhm.
it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
It's back off when you need to back off, and
Mhm.
push it when it feels good, right?
Yeah.
Listen to your body, be in tune with your body, right? That also helps us as the marathon goes on, that you will be kind of listening for those signs as well, and kind of hopefully foresee any like if you're starting to feel really fatigued or something like that, so that we
Mhm.
can kind of preserve, if you will.
Yeah.
If you were, you know we're in a normal build, if like right now it would be, hey, consistency, right? What my question would be for you is like, hey, what do you feel like you need, right?
Yeah.
And kind of working through that, if there's anything specifically we need to work on, anything that you're worried about, right? A
Mhm.
question that I'll ask athletes sometimes is, hey, listen, you've obviously been running before we worked together, a lot of the times, and is there anything you did previously that you feel like would be helpful now, right?
Yeah.
And that can help for me, just again understand an athlete's confidence and where if there's any lacking and stuff like that, so that we're showing up to the race excited to go.
Yeah.
We're not in
Yeah.
that
'Cause
case right now as much, but yeah.
no, we're definitely not, and I think that that's like I told you on the phone last week too, that I'm definitely starting to get a little, or I've been a bit worried about Boston, like how to
Mm,
get there. One thing is confidence, but also just in terms of that training to be prepared for 26 miles.
yeah,
So and like this week, obviously everything is easy. Some strides during that easy run tomorrow. Is
yep,
it more important now that I'm sticking to like, and now I'm not talking about the difference between like 4:10 pace because that is too fast no matter what. But it's
yeah,
so today on my run just before our call, I had 9K just easy. Like
yep,
average heart rate was 124, which is pretty low,
yep,
but I still see that my average pace was like 440, 445,
yep.
which is like a, a lot of the case. I think I had 435, 430 or something like that, and
Hmm.
it just like because I get that pace very easily,
Yeah.
uh but I still, when I get home, I'm like, "Ugh, probably shouldn't have gone that fast. I should have like pulled the brakes even more." Is that something that you think that I need to focus more on now for the next 3 weeks to like make sure I keep it even closer to five, or is it okay that I'm, yeah,
um I would say, this is kind of a cop out answer, is I would just listen to your body every day, right?
yeah,
Knowing that we have work, right? Similar to knowing we have workouts coming up and stuff like that, and sessions coming up.
yeah,
Um, that is more of the goal with things, I would say.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and yeah, so listening based off of how you're feeling. If you were feeling like trash, then I'd expect you to slow down and stuff. But it seems like you just kind of got into a good rhythm and were running the pace you
yeah,
were running, which is fine.
yeah. Yeah.
That's always the goal with it, right? If it was, super hot all like, let's say, you went to the southern US, right? Or Phoenix right now,
Mhm.
because it's that hot down there, is like, and it's 25 out, right? Celsius.
Yeah.
Then you would back off, right?
Yeah.
Because of how you're feeling. It's the same thing, right?
Hmm.
Same thing if somebody from Phoenix went up to a place where it was, 8 Celsius, right? It would be,
Yeah.
they're gonna feel really good and, probably run a little faster. And that's kind of
Yeah.
the goal with it is just to listen to your body on a day-to-day basis and realize that, yeah, we're not, trying to crush runs. Like we are not gaining fitness from easy running.
No.
So, we don't want to see 4 flat pace, right?
No. No.
Or faster, obviously. And so, yeah, kind of listening to the body with that.
Yeah. And the workout on Friday, is that threshold? I saw, was it
Yep.
6 by
It's
8K?
actually, I re-thought about it and I bumped it up
Yeah.
a little bit.
Okay,
So,
cool.
it's 8 to 10 by K, and just
Yeah,
kinda listening to your
nice.
body with it, of floating through it, and I don't know if you real or saw, there's a wider range of paces, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the wider range of paces, the goal with it is for you to start a little chiller with it, and then just kinda
Mhm.
gradually and try to figure out where we're at. So, a lot of it will be probably starting in zone 2-ish and working into zone 3,
Mhm.
is kind of the idea with it, so
Yeah. And the long run on Sunday,
Mhm.
you said like easy, so just
Yes,
time on feet.
correct.
But is it supposed to be like a little bit faster than the easy runs that I have now, or are they supposed to be the same pace?
Right around the same pace.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you're kinda getting into a groove with it and you run a little bit faster, then that's fine with me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I don't seeing that same, like, 350 at the end is not the goal with that, but,
No, no.
if you're by the end, if you get into, like, let's say 410s, 420s,
Mhm.
something like that, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Running a little bit faster, but I wanna make sure that we're being controlled with it. It should basically be the
Mm.
same pace, which was, 430s to 440s,
Yeah.
like, is what we did today, right?
Mhm. And then last question on the training
Mhm.
here now. Will we have, because now like on Sunday we will be 2 weeks outish. Will we have
Yep.
like almost like not a last test because we don't have time for that, but like will there be any workouts that are more marathon specific before the race? I am also, I think, leaving for, maybe that's bad timing, but leaving for Boston on the Saturday, 10 days or 9 days before the race.
Is
I
that
don't
the
I don't know if it 11th.
Yeah, okay. Um,
Yeah.
Making a note on the calendar.
Yeah.
Um, um, we'll see, right? And that's kind
Yeah.
of where we're at right now is, for lack of a better, like, we're not we're not following, like, a training plan, and I'm modifying it a little bit here and there. We're kind
Mhm.
of looking at the week and deciding what's the best thing for the next week,
Yeah.
kind of thing. We kind of had to throw away the whole training plan a little bit and just go
Yeah.
kind of day by day, week by week situation, and
Yeah.
so, which is fine, right? Again,
Mhm.
this is you know this is what's nice about working with a coach, is that it's
Yeah.
like, you don't have this training plan that's set and then you're like, this happened, what do I do, right?
Yeah.
It's and so that's where we're kind of constantly just trying to match and see. My guess would be no.
Yeah.
Is that we're not going to do like an MP style workout, because I would be afraid of possibly adding a lot of fatigue, right? Versus in the marathon, it's fine because we're going to rest afterwards.
Yeah.
But I want to see the consistency, and I don't want to lose those days. But instead, just getting time on feet, longer runs, is kind of a
Mhm.
longer long run would be the goal with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So just after this call, John and I, we kept on talking a little bit. I asked him if I was gonna do like one last test before the Boston Marathon. He said no, we're probably not gonna do that, but we're gonna try to go into Boston with a little bit of fatigue. That is kind of the goal. And yeah, that's kind of what you missed out on while we were waiting for the files to upload after. I genuinely love working with John. He's such a good person, such a good coach, and can't wait to keep working with him and recommend him. And yeah, to anyone who's running. So thanks for listening to this. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that this was helpful. And in the next episode, we are having Thomas Knobs back together with his coach, Brent Stachel. I have to ask him how to pronounce his last name because I'm pretty bad at that. Anyways, Thomas just ran a 2:09 marathon, and I can't wait to chat with him. I'm having a conversation with him in just 14 minutes. So that will be fun. And that episode will be out on Friday. Thanks again for listening. Have a good one. Enjoy your run. And thanks for being here. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wild Studio.